introducing and interviewing the one and only Joe. I believe we're on.
We're on.
G'day, Joe.
I think.
How are you? The one and only Joe.
Getting there. No,
There's three, isn't there?
I don't know how many
You
there
keep coming back.
is. I don't know how many there is. Before we start, I brought this over for Peter and I just thought I'd give it to him. This come in from America, given to a mate of mine and so on like that, and sold as giving between 51 to what they say, 51 to 97% fuel economy. And so this guy paid up his money up front and so on. You got to send your money first. Now this is nearly $500 Australian, which is American. What's that?
Well, we're 75 cents in the dollar, roughly.
Anyway, so he got 1 cent and it was screwed together. All this topping screwed on, and everything's jet black plastic and everything else, and so on. And
It won't work, Joe. It's not blue plastic. You know, the old blue plastic bucket.
and anyway, so
Sorry.
yeah, right. You can joke as much as you like. I try to stay serious. I joke all the time anyway. Don't worry. So he sent the first one in, and it took him a couple of months, but finally got it there and everything else. And he put it up to his vehicle. And he's a mechanic in Lismore, does all the key cutting, got all the analysing gear and everything else. So he put it on his vehicle and went for a run to Byron Bay and back. Done all the testing and everything else, and found out it didn't do a damn thing. So he thought, bugger it, I'm going to pull the piece and see what's in there. And this one here was threaded there, so he got her in and he undone her and everything else. And when he pulled her apart, he found out that on the end of it, on the end of those two fittings down into here, is two ordinary washers that round. Just ordinary, nut bolt washers. Flat.
Not even stainless.
Well, I don't know. Probably. Well, it wouldn't be stainless if it was going to react, because it could be. I didn't check anyway. So another fellow who been chasing him up for it too and talking to him wanted it for a diesel, so I gave him the same money, and he said, he'd take the damn thing, and it leaks everywhere and so on. So the fellas in America who sold it to him called him back and said, how'd you go with that sell, and what do you reckon about it, and can we get you to fill out paper and everything else and say, what you like about it and everything? He said, this stuff, this is the biggest hunk of crap out. He said, didn't do a damn thing.
Come on, there's smaller hunks of crap and bigger hunks.
Yeah. So within 3 days later, this one arrived. It said, free one, it's all yours. And so on like that. So I just now gave it to Peter, but he can pull it to pieces and do whatever he likes, but no good as himself. But these things here are out there, all in somebody's name, to be sold, and so on. But and that's all it is just black. What's that? Poly.
PVC.
4-inch,
100 mil.
Whatever.
Yep. With
And,
end caps, two end caps.
And the only thing you get is a few wires.
Well, that's expensive, Joe.
And the best thing about it, what changes it from being anything else, your brown cell or anything else, is or hydrogen oxygen stuff, is you don't use caustic soda, you use Drano.
Oh, good. So it's only NaSO4.
Caustic soda. Drano. So anyway, Peter can have the damn thing and pull the pieces and look at it and put it on and show you all if you want what's in there. But this is what's out there and some of the stuff being sold, and it's useless. Useless.
Right.
Anyway.
Joe, now we've got past the real serious stuff. We're on our group called Yahoo Groups, Joe Sell 2 site. There's been an acknowledgement on some of the Suzuki video inquiries, one of which is, if you like, you want me to read it out to you so everybody can hear it. Hi Joe, I hope you are well. I just wanted to thank you for all you have done. I truly believe you are the one who make the greatest difference in the world, helping mankind stop polluting our environment and slowly killing ourselves with polluting energy systems. Peter, thanks for helping Joe get his stuff out into the public domain. I really do appreciate you both. To answer your question you posed in the Suzuki video, I just wanted to tell you firsthand that I figured out what you did in the Suzuki video with the Suzuki truck. Joe, you have reversed the polarity of the entire system.
Does that require... That's not a question, that's him telling me.
Told you we were different.
Yeah, so is that a question?
Well...
Is that the end of it?
Joe, you say when you've done... What you've done is reverse polarity type and so on. When you shut down the positive side of the coil, the alternator charges the system in the opposite direction. You demonstrated this while in the restaurant with your fingers. The alternator is charging this way and your battery is charging the other way. Later in the video you mentioned the Suzuki truck has a solenoid on the carb, and this was put there to shut down the fuel from entering the intake manifold. The solenoid centre is positive and the base.
Yeah, to answer all this about the Suzuki was out there for all the years now. I'm not a person doing anything, as you know, and so on, but so many people out there sort of saying about what Joe's done and what he's doing, and well, that's better. I can see myself there now. This smart aleck with the Suzuki was raving that he was a well, electronic squirt, you know, can play with all these and understand all these things and everything else and so on, but I want that tipped up a bit, Pete, I'll get the face better. I mean a little short ass, but he's down too far for me. So I just happened to be down at this fella's place, not working with him or do anything else, and he was mouthing off about this and that and everything else all over the place, so I said, yeah, you know about cars and everything? I said, I'll go and stuff yours. So I just went out and no screwdrivers, no spanners, no anything. And just one little thing. And then he couldn't shut his vehicle. And I said, well, figure that one out. So with all the people out there and everything else professing, there's so many sites on the internet about what Joe cells are and what they do and everything else, you know, hydrogen producing machines, everything, that's bullshit. Okay? I've told Peter and everything else, I'll allow you to put him on this. It's a frequency that you're changing. Okay? Vehicles are known to run like pre-ignition and cold dieseling and everything else, and the timing's out, you just change all that to suit and it brings it back into order. Got a condenser which is faulty, car don't go. So everything else is the same, but condensers out. Any of the electrics or anything else on a vehicle, shut them down. Okay, so, but what this vehicle does is probably a few different things actually, the Suzuki. Technology out there not known so much is DC generators. Government took them a long time ago, use them in the Air Force and everything for sending radio signals, as far as I know, around the world everywhere, and they don't tell you about them. But early vehicles had DC, well you wouldn't call them a magneto, but that's what they did call them, DC magneto, and they only had one wire coming out of them, there's no second wire, and that one wire just went and screwed onto the engine anywhere, and that was from a 1-cylinder up to a 12-cylinder motor, and the engines run. Right? They just run, there's nothing else required. You don't need distributor or anything else like that, because see, you're doing away with it. That frequency or whatever else went into the engine and fired the engine. See, when people try to figure out what is actually running the engine, is it the spark? No, the spark doesn't fire the fuel-air mix. It's vehicle spark doesn't fire it. The thing what's occurring and everything else is that your spark is jumping from the centre electrode over to ground, and the spark isn't igniting anything, it's converting itself back into the block and back around through your battery and the whole circuit. And so, a few interruptions, but that's alright. So, where does that spark come from? It comes back to the coil. Okay, and see, your positive and negative going to your coil aren't actually producing, you're not using any of them. You've got to talk layman's terms, I'm pretty lame. Bringing it back to where's this spark come from? the coil, which is called the Tesla coil in the cars and everything else, is it's got a primary and a secondary winding and everything. And what happens is your negative coming off your block goes through your point, your condenser, and then up into your coil and goes around and comes out the other side as positive. Your positive comes into the coil, goes round on the very early cars and everything else. She goes round through your primary and secondary and everything, and it comes out as ground negative. So it's gone in positive, it comes out negative. Now, you don't use any of them two. None of them are used up to actually make the AC spike what comes out the centre of the coil. It is it's a 90-degree spike. They're there and they create it, but it's not them that it's actually been used up to make it. Check that out. It's a 90-degree spike. So, and on Commodores, just giving it to you roughly, quickly and everything else, Commodores use something called waste spark management. Ford used it for a while, wouldn't pay Holden and everything else, so then, as far as I understand, don't hold me to that one, but Ford had it on for a while and then took it off. But Commodores use it on their V6s and everything else, where they use the positive side as well and fire it. Now, just bring up on the running of the engine, the negative is the thing which has got the points or the braking circuit in it for your compression side of your cylinder, and on the Commodores they fire at 6 degrees before top dead centre. So, you know, up here and they fire and your piston keeps going and everything else, and then it explodes down the cylinder apparently. So, right. So, what the Commodore motor is a 350 Chev motor, right? V8, but 2 cylinders missing. So they don't get real good economy. So the Holden and everything else, actually, probably for America or somewhere, come up with waste spark management. If you break that down, waste spark, well, they don't have waste spark. They have waste electricity, okay? They're not using it. So they actually break it, like on the negative side is broken by a set of points, they break the positive side. Now the positive is a complete opposite to the negative. So the positive side is then fired into the opposite cylinder of than what the negative one is. So you have a 2 cylinders coming up at the same time. Okay, one is under compression. It's opposite when I look in that mirror. Anyway, and the.
Sorry, because you're in Australia, Joe.
So, that's it. So the other one coming up is on exhaust, pushing the exhaust out. That's on a 4-stroke, okay? So you have your exhaust valve open, and they fire that positive, they break the positive side, and they fire that into the exhaust cylinder at 6 degrees. It fires at the exact same time. Okay, that wasn't exact, but close enough. So negative fires a compression chamber, so-called, and the positive is fired then into the exhaust at 6 degrees before top, which actually creates the negative in the compression chamber, creates explosion. Breaks all your gases apart and gives you, heat and expansion and everything else. Well, the other one actually closes down, and she pulls on the piston, the head of the piston, even with the valve open. You've got to understand that if you know about mechanics and everything else. 2-stroke shouldn't work because the exhaust is open. First, then your intake, and it's compressing with the exhaust. Your coal fuel comes in, your hot gases go out, and it's compressing with a big open hole. It shouldn't run, but it does. Anyway, so what actually happens with the Commodores is that you're getting implosion. The positive creates an implosion in the exhaust, burnt gases, and closes them down, creates a pull, gives a smoother motor, less miles per gallon that you have to put in the first part and everything else. So we take a motor which is normally around about the, who knows if it's a really good carbureted one or something, injection one, you might get 15, 18 miles per gallon out of the original V8, 350 Chev or something. With the V6, you would get probably 20 something, but they're getting 38 to 40 miles per gallon out of the V6s now because of waste spark. You can go to the computer, cut that wire, and you break yourself down to about 20 or so, make your motor run rougher, noisier, and you still got go, but you haven't got the go that they've got. So they actually created this implosion to fire on that side. So they're using the the positive and the negative, and they call it waste spark. Just come up to date with all that and everything else too, check it out. But and that goes into two opposite cylinders, so it double fires. Okay, so your V6 is really a V12, but firing on the compression and firing on the exhaust, and it makes a smooth motor with good economy and everything else. Okay, not many people know about that as such, but anyway. But your spark coming out of your coil is a 90-degree spike. You're not using the positive or the negative of your coil. You're using them there to set up the field, and when you collapse one side of the field, you get that going across. Now, that, if you look at the other tapes what Peter here has got and everything else on it, that doesn't seem to have a positive or negative charge to it, from what we understand. If it had a negative charge, and we know about magnetism and everything else, electromagnetic field collapsing and whatever else, and then magnetism is what? Positive, similar repel, and the
like poles repel.
Okay, and opposites attract. So if that spark, I've asked people, if that spark was positive coming out of your coil, then it would go to the negative terminal at your battery in your circuit, but wouldn't go to the positive. But on the tape you find it going to the positive and to the negative. Vice versa, if it was negative, it shouldn't go to the negative, it go to the positive, but it's going to both. And then on top of it you've got a fuel cell there. The battery is a fuel cell that makes hydrogen and oxygen. They tell you that, this is not even part of the question, but it's a good understanding so you can bring up to start to understand some of this. They tell you that hydrogen and all that can be fired in the motor by that spark. Your battery produces hydrogen and oxygen. That spark doesn't blow the battery. It doesn't blow that gas. It actually makes it, if you look at the tapes that Peter here now has. And the only reason I give that out there for anybody anyway is to see that there's different frequencies that we don't know of. There's different things occurring that we've been told and doesn't occur, right? And some things do occur when we're told that they don't occur. Okay, so really back to it. On the Suzuki and everything else, yes, no spanners, no screwdrivers, no nothing else, but there is a polarity change. And not the way that you understand it. It's not the same talked about like down at the cafe. And that was talking about generators. Generators with polarising them, reverse polarising them with the regulator and everything. This is an alternator. And on the tape it's talking about the alternator actually, well, it shows you there, the alternator squealing its head off when we pull the wire off the positive of the coil. Not any other time. The motor will rev, it'll go good and everything else while the key's on and while the positive wire's on the coil. Okay, but you pull the positive wire off the coil and your alternator howls its head off. And this fellow says, who's on there, he says that it's the brand new belt that he put on there that no, it's not loose. The one he had on there before done it, so he put a brand new one on there. Put a brand new one on, tighten it up, and still does it. Why? Because your alternator is charging one way and being driven one way. Okay, and when we pull that wire there, and I haven't got to tell you what's actually running the vehicle then, because it's not the alternator and it's not the battery. It's something called DC generated, non-regulated frequency. See, a generator has a regulator, an alternator has a regulator. Okay, we'll get to the next bit, what doesn't in a second. The first DC magnetos, or DC generator type with the one wire, never had a regulator. The frequency that it produced didn't have it. So when you're trying to comprehend that as such, try and figure out pre-ignition and cold dieseling. Okay, pre-ignition, these are only talking about electric cars. Okay, not diesel vehicles, we're talking electric, petrol-driven spark motors at the moment. Okay, there's a couple of concepts there, what occurs, what people don't understand. Our hydraulics, I won't go there too much, but our hydraulics, They say, scientists and everybody else says that a liquid cannot be compressed. Okay, well you put a little bit of water into a diesel motor and everything else, and mate, don't care how fat the conrod is or the size of the piston, she'll just smash it to smithereens because she's 100% hydraulic lock. Okay, it won't compress. But what actually happens on an electric motor? Car. Okay, you can grab the garden hose, been shown to you, and everything else. Hitler had it and everything else. You can stick the flipping water, stick water straight down the throat. Pour it in, turn the garden hose on and turn it on full bore. All you got to do is bring the accelerator up a little bit, just to compensate so it doesn't cut out, because it's, right, and the water goes in, it doesn't, the amount that you can pour in there doesn't actually evaporate. And then you can catch it in the bucket out the exhaust. Okay, it doesn't evaporate and then condense again in the time that it's doing it with the revs of the motor and everything else. You bring your revs right up, it decokes the valves, decokes the pistons, unseizes sticky rings, unseizes sticky valves, and flaming just frees the motor. But the electrics going through that engine takes away all hydraulics. Because you can put in there with the motor going, right, and you don't get the hydraulic lock. You turn the engine off, put some water down there or liquid or something else like that, and then try and hit the key, plumb. You don't go anywhere. But if the engine's going and you put it into there, it's a different thing happening altogether. So now, with the Suzuki, we're not got an offer, we're still there. With the Suzuki and everything else, the key was turned off. Pre-ignition coal diesel, and what is occurring? Pre-ignition is, we've been told there's too much carbon on the piston or too much heat or so on like that in the chamber. Many things can cause pre-ignition. Too much compression, too much carbon, too much, you know, whatever. But the timing, how do you stop the pre-ignition? So in pre-ignition what you're doing is you're starting your vehicle and then your motor's supposed to be hot and you turn the key off. So when you turn the key off, your motor don't stop. It actually starts to not run smooth, it runs roughish. Okay? So I can make your motor run rough, you can make your motor run rough just by grabbing the distributor and turning the damn thing out of where it is now. Okay, and it'll run rough as guts. Okay? So the pre-ignition can be stopped in an engine by just retarding the timing. And that's with the key on. Okay? Just retard your timing a fraction and so on, and then turn the key off and your motor just stops. So, but if it's too far advanced on the timing, then she can run on. Doesn't do it with every engine or anything else. You can make your engines do it by just advancing too much. People out there, if you understand about pre-ignition, or if you had it happen, fine, your key's turned off. Now if your key's turned off, you've also shut down a few other things. One is if you've got a carburetor, you shut down the electronic, the solenoid. Okay, solenoid, which is virtually double wiring, you know, electromagnetic field, and that actually throws a piece of metal. Either throws it out because of the way that you wound it, and she pushes across the hull and shuts down the engine. Okay, stops fuel going in. The Cortinas and Geminis and everything else actually have it the other way winding, and so on. It actually pulls up, pulls away, so it's pulling into it. So you got push out and pull in, that's the solenoid. Okay, so you shut down your positive, you shut down your solenoid, you shut down the fuel, you're supposed to shut down the engine. But people are turning their engines off with solenoids, and they're turning off the coil, or are they? Turning off the coil and so on, which is your ignition spark positive. And the engines are still going. Running rough as guts. Okay? So, and that's with the key turned off. You've got to start asking yourselves, what is actually happening when your engine is going by either your generator or your alternator and everything else, and you turn the key off? Have you shut down the spark? No, you haven't. You shut down the forward spark, and then your dash light comes on. Okay? Because you're feeding the other way, and it's not the same spark. It's not the same thing altogether, not even the same flaming stuff. Anyway, so, and the car goes. So you haven't got your solenoid, you haven't got your coil, and you haven't got your ignition, but your car is still running. Okay? So why is it running? what I've done in the past and everything, when it's pre-ignite and everything else, I don't go and I don't go always. I do for other people, but turn the distributor backwards, retard the timing, and turn your key on and run it that way. Okay, because out here your car will rust too. Okay, because we're running a negative earth, so-called here. England runs a positive earth. Their bodies don't rust. They don't use butterfly chokes to shut down air. They use flooding chokes, if they use a choke. All their cars. Hop in, turn the key, press a button, boom, in all the wet weather. They're putting, because of sleet and snow and shit and everything over the roads in England, what do they throw on the roads? Salt. Well, you put salt on the road out here and drive your car around for a while, and what are you going to have? Rusted out seat.
Another rust bucket.
Another rust bucket. Well, in England they run that system, which is a positive earth as such and everything else, and that stops the rusting of the bodies and so on like that. Okay? And gives better start, and don't need to reduce, in the winter time, they don't need to reduce the air to give you more fuel so you don't splutter and cough and backfire up through the carby and everything can drive down the road. They run positive earth. We're stupid out here. We run negative earth and everything else and so on, and then our bodies rust. We get static electricity in our vehicles, and now we need in winter, when it's cold weather and everything, we need a butterfly choke to shut off the air to give ourselves more fuel. And isn't that good? It's really good. You know, it's good for the oil company. Anyway, so, and all these different things occur because of it. So, that's pre-ignition. We can retard the timing. What I do is, on what I've done on the vintage cars and on some of the others, is I don't do that. I turn the key off, and if it's pre-igniting, I keep advancing it. Because what you're going to find is there's only a degree in where those motors will fire. And if that's with the key turned on, within that degree, there's top dead centre, and you've got your circle, and it fires within that degrees on this side. It's backwards on there, it's a tape here to me. On that side, say 6 degrees before top dead centre, because there's top dead centre, pistons coming up, fires on that side. Okay? So, if it's firing there, and so on, you turn the key off, where is your actual spark or frequency going? It's going over somewhere else. Let's put your timing out. So, why won't your engine run with the key turned off? It has got frequency spark there. It has, but it's completely reversed. Because the engine's going, it's complete reverse. And it's put the timing over to another place. What I do is I advance a distributor. Okay, and what happens is you go, it starts running smooth. And then you can accelerate with the key turned off. With the engine going. You'll figure out how to start it otherwise and what to do otherwise, but that's what I do, and it actually runs. But if you want it to run properly with the key on and you turn the key off and it stops, you have to retard the distributor. So what now is the other? Cold dieseling. Okay? Cold dieseling is not a diesel engine. Cold dieseling is an engine which is actually, you start it when the motor's cold, and you turn it straight back off again, and the damn thing pre-ignites, or not pre-ignites, cold diesels as they call it. It's not pre-igniting because it's hot, it's now cold, and it runs on. Da-dum. Okay, so, is that okay? Did all those things. It's good, like right noise. Anyway, so...
If you did it tomorrow, Joe, we might win the cup.
That's it, not into it. The cold dieseling is, cold engine, turn the key off, she keeps going. That's electric solenoid shut down, that's ignition to the positive side of the coil shut down, and whatever else shut down, fuel pumps and everything else if you want to look at it. The engine keeps going, but runs rough. So how do you stop that? You turned your key off. Have you shut down the spark? What's making the motor run? To stop your cold dieseling, what do? You have to advance your distributor because it's too far retarded. It's gone out of that. What's gone out of that? When you turn the key off. Okay? So you have to bring your distributor up a little bit ahead, advance it a bit, and then you can start your car and turn it off, and she just goes and stops. Why is the damn thing running? When you turn the key off and everything else you shut down, why is it still going? When the timing is gone one way or the other. Okay? Now, on the Suzuki, we haven't gone from it. What we've got is a whole lot of things here that people haven't figured out what has really taken place with the Suzuki. Now, I didn't say I was going to tell you every single thing here, I'm just bringing up a little bit onto something because, see, you tell everybody everything and what do you get? You get called a dipshit.
They still wouldn't know, Joe.
Yeah, I understand. So, you don't get any praise and glory, and I don't want it anyway. And you don't make yourself out to be anything. In fact, you've got everybody out there who want to write about you, call you a flipping idiot, right? And then there's other people here like this guy here. I appreciate his views and everything else, but doesn't do anything for me. Sorry about that, but I don't care about praise and glory, and I'm not interested in what you think as such. And I'm not doing it. And I'm not doing it for anybody or any reason or anything. It's just. And I said to Peter, you can put it out there, and all it's about is that all these things written about Joe and everything else, he never put any of them up there. And they're all been cross-fusing all this flipping information everywhere and getting it all out of whack. It's frequencies. It's not gases, it's not petrols, it's not anything like that. It's frequencies, what cars do. I found out how you can make cars run without that. Peter Brock, same problem. Now dead, someone like that, pity for him, but anyway, Peter had a car running without the fuels. And people thought he was running a fuel polariser. It wasn't a fuel polariser. He ran out of fuel 3 laps earlier. Fuel polarisers work with fuel. Everybody thought, they don't think. You know, they just accepted what was told to them, but Peter was running an air polariser. That's what he's running. Okay, so done that himself and everything else, run without fuels and stuff, doesn't matter. I mean, the Japanese know, the car companies know it happens to them. Pre-ignition, cold dieseling, all these effects that they run different metals in engines, they get all these things happen and they don't want to tell you and they don't want to give it to you and they don't want you to know. And the science doesn't tell you about any of this stuff as well and everything else, and we don't actually think about what's taking place. To Suzuki, again, back to it. Suzuki with a key turned off and someone like that doesn't pre-ignite and doesn't cold diesel. Why? Well, the distributor hadn't been touched. The frequency in the distributor is not tuned. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It is not too far advanced and it's not too far retarded. It's where it's supposed to be. Okay? And I reversed polarity, but not a normal polarity. And I didn't have a spanner or a screwdriver or anything else to do it. It took one wire. That's one that you're going to have a look at, not me. Because I'm not telling you the wire. Not yet. You just look at it. And what it did is that when the car is going, what you've seen on the disc of tape or whatever else, the alternator is fighting itself crazy because the alternator is binding up the fan belt. Squealing crap is out of the fan belt because the alternator doesn't want to go in the direction. I'm not saying it's going in the opposite direction. The alternator does not want to go in the direction that fan belt is going, which is connected to the crankshaft, and that's why it's only howling when we either turn the key off or pull that wire at the coil. Okay. All right. Breaking all down and everything else, got to ask you a few other questions and you'll come up to what it is. What is a coil? Okay, it's called a Tesla coil. It's got a primary and a secondary and so on like that. And your windings. What's in the middle of those windings? Nothing. So what did Tesla find? He found out if you don't do that and everything else and you drive these two fields to it and you collapse one side of the fields and everything, you get not a DC, you get an AC spike coming out. Now the DC might have a positive or negative charge to it, or the positive may have a positive or negative charge to it. But that one out the centre, at 90 degrees, what has it got? You check that out yourself. Okay? If it had either one, it would not go to one or the other on the battery or the fields in the engine if it's a magnetic field. And that's what it says it is. It's a collapsing electromagnetic field. Okay? So, and if it goes to both, you figure out why and how and what it is. Okay? And if you can't, maybe some other time I'll tell you. But, so you can use either side of the coil and everything else. So the coil doesn't have a piece of metal in the middle. What is a solenoid? Solenoid does have a piece of metal in the middle. It's got the two windings and everything else. It sets up electromagnetic field. If it's got a piece of metal in there, she'll either push out if it's wound one way, or pull in if it's wound the other. Okay? Good. Now we break ourselves down to a generator. What is a generator? Generator is setting up the windings and so on. So it's exactly the same way that it's wound as the coil or anything else, but you've got your two, your positive and your negative. And what's in the middle? You've got a circular piece of something in there. Now, if you turn it by the motor, you get electricity out of it. What happens if you drive electricity into it? Well, you haven't got a generator, you've got yourself a starter motor. Okay, because now putting electricity to it actually turns the generator. So your generator now is a starter motor. So what's a starter motor? Starter motor's got your two windings and everything else, and when you throw power at it, she turns the shaft and everything. Now if you got an English type starter motor, you've got a bending spring on the end, and she'll actually wind up and everything and throw back in by a spring load. But if you've got yourself one of what we have on all our normal cars and everything else, we need to apply two things on here now. One is a solenoid and the starter motor. So you've got two sets of coilings, positive and negatives, to do two different things. One is the starter shaft turns, doesn't throw out, doesn't pull in, doesn't throw a spike. That look was for another reason. Now, so you spin it by throwing power at it, okay, and the starter mode is the same in England and Australia. Either negative earth or positive earth, doesn't make any difference, still turns. Okay, so you put a solenoid on, and so your starter turns, and then your solenoid pushes and throws that rod out. Okay, and that engages into the flywheel, and she actually starts to turn the flywheel. You may not have picked it up as such and everything else on the tape, is what actually happens to a starter motor when the starter motor is being taken past the spinning ability on what you can drive it with by the power what's in the vehicle. In other words, the battery. The battery will spin the starter motor at a certain speed. If it's 6 volt, it spins it at so many revolutions. If it's 12 volt, similar thing and everything. What happens if you stick 12 volts onto a 6 volt starter motor? What happens if you stick 6 volts onto a 12 volt starter motor? Okay? You understand? Like a flat battery. So, what happens if you take a starter motor and spin it faster than what the original flame electricity pouring through and around your circuits and everything else actually does? While it's locked in, it's being driven by the solenoid, lock it into the ring gear. And when you let the key go and everything else at a certain revolution, does your ring gear throw it back out? Not at high speed. She wants to keep throwing itself forward. And if you've got a reverse polarity and everything else, which isn't, that's not where I done it. Sorry, it's not where I done it. But what happens with the starter motor when you overspin them past the point? What do they become?
Generator.
Generating what?
That other type of frequency.
Which isn't regulated. And where does it go? Well, see, it doesn't come up the wires. And it doesn't go down the wires.
It goes through the body of the starter and energises the engine.
It goes out through the shaft and ends up as a DC generator. No, DC magneto. No, I can't call that either. It sets up an unregulated DC field, what goes through into the flywheel, up the crankshaft.
Yeah,
And there's a possibility, there's a big possibility that actually can do the same as the DC magneto in the early days that they don't want you to know about, which is sending a field in the engine what doesn't use that kind of spark to actually, it's not spark, frequency to fire the engines, because the spark does not fire the engine. You don't think so? How do you check a faulty spark plug getting into it real fast? Faulty spark plug. No, don't care about anything we've got to miss. Faulty spark plug. Okay, well, without pulling it out. Okay? I'm not saying one like some other strange, weird people who, they can have a look at this, grab a good brand new spark plug and drive the end of the flaming tip down onto the centre electrode and think you got a faulty spark plug? No, that's a dead short. The only thing that'll happen there is that your coil will jump spark straight out of the centre electrode down onto the negative side because your points are on that side. It should jump straight down out of the centre onto the negative electrode. Okay? If it's negative earth and negative side that you're braking. Because it's got nowhere to go, it can't go down there. But in a spark plug which is faulty, carboned up or something like that, or cracked and there's a different happening down there through the carbon or something like that, so she's not getting the right frequency to fire your engine by the spark, how do you prove that it's a faulty spark plug? Outside the engine, grab your spark plug lead. There's a spark plug and there's your lead and your god on it's missing. Take it away, it's missing. Make the spark visibly jump in front of you outside the engine. What happens? Now they tell you that what you're doing is just building up charge and everything else, so it's going to jump in there. It's dead shorted in there through the carbon there. It's not going to spark. You've got your spark jumping out here. So what's happening at the end of the spark plug? You set up a different frequency. And you're not using the spark to actually fire the petrol and air. But you prove that you got a faulty spark plug. So you pull that spark plug out and you throw it away and then you stick the lead on. And now the motor goes, with the spark there, but it was going, without the spark there before. The spark was outside. Something to think about. Okay, so what is that frequency that actually made the motor run without the spark inside the cylinder? Or if it does have a spark inside the cylinder, if it does, and I'm wrong, right, if I'm wrong on that, then what spark's outside and what spark's inside? Because they're not the same. They're not the same. And then, if you really knew and could find that out and everything else, there's a possibility that you could use that frequency and throw away your distributor and spark plug leads and spark plugs and everything else and run your engine on that.
Joe, can we get rid of the motor?
Freddie Flintstones, they told me, used to. Cut a hole in the floor and use his feet, but he didn't go to, calluses, I suppose. I don't know.
Could you use a different sort of energy into the actual transmission?
You mean just to drive the gearbox?
Yeah.
Well, they're doing that with electric motors.
Just with electric motors, right? Okay.
And they're using electric and hybrid cells and things like that.
Could you spin the cell in? If that were the unit, or can you use
a
just
cell? What do you call a cell?
Well, just I don't know, whatever a cell is. I'll let you get with it,
It's a strange question. I don't know what he's really asking and such, but yeah, you can get rid of engines. People have run different things in, behind the electric motors or so. They only understand that as such. Gear ratio, I don't know, pedal cars, pedal things, whatever you want to use. But I think we're going a bit backwards now. People want to go fast. People don't want to go back and reinvent the wheel. There are many ways of doing it and everything else, but anyway. So let's finish what's actually happening. There is one little tiny thing that took me about 3 seconds without a spanner or a screwdriver. 3 seconds. Underneath the bonnet of the car, which does these things. Okay? And so far, nobody's been able to roughly figure out, or even come smoothly figure out what's happened. And it has. To start with, it is reversing the polarity to some degree, which isn't one that we know of because it's fighting the alternator and it's fighting everything else. When we bring the revs up on the Suzuki, you'll find out that your normal spark, which is in your spark plug leads and everything else, disappears. So your motor runs smooth, up higher, and you lose the spark from your coil, distributor, points, condenser and everything else. Why have we got that spark there? Yeah, well, when things are missing off the coil, and there is a condenser, which is going from the positive side of the coil, it's not a condenser, it is, but we call it a suppressor. Okay, suppressor. If we want to look at a suppressor and a condenser as same things, primary and secondary as such, and what happens? If we want a condenser for our spark, we hook it up on the negative side of our coil with our points, and she goes through and makes the car run. If it's faulty, right? You pull that out, unscrew the case off the body and everything, you can pull your car at 1,000 mile an hour, you won't get a kick out of it. With all the spark, everything else, there's spark there, won't kick. Okay, what's a suppressor? Well, the suppressor is earth ground, outside case, the same as condenser. And the condenser goes to the negative side. Suppressor goes to the positive side of the coil. And takes away the crackle out of your wireless and everything else, you know. What comes from your static out of your alternator, or out of your coil, or out of your leads and everything else, causes this jumping, vibrating, pulsing feel that really isn't even needed, because it's jumping across the centre electrode in your spark plug back down to ground to try and give you a flatline frequency. So everything that we know of doesn't run on AC. Now, you can put AC to it, but it doesn't run on the AC. Your TV has to convert back to DC to turn it on. Your video, DC to turn it on. Your wireless, DC to turn it on. Your computer, DC to turn it on. Your jug has to go with the coiling and everything else back to DC. You don't think it's DC? AC will kill you, kick you, and knock you right over. 1, 2, 3 coils in the jug element and everything, in the water. Put your hand in, turn it on, she'll just boil water. She won't kill you, because it's converted through a coil back to a DC. Okay, all these things work through DC. Your engine works off DC frequency, it doesn't work off AC. The spark plug's there to jump the spark across to convert it back to a DC flatline charge, so it'll flame and fire the engine. And some of the early cars never had them. They never had the points, never had the condensers, never had the flaming spark plugs, never had the distributors, never had leads. Okay? And Maggies and all that, well, they had the advance of Maggie, your frequency spark, which they did do. They did have, you know, a breaking, very big whacking flaming AC kick to them. Okay? But then they had to use spark plugs. But go back before that, they didn't. And back before that, they didn't. Okay? You had all these different vehicles, like you heard of petrol Kero cars, you know. Start them on petrol, turn them over to Kero. Then they had Kero, not knowing too much about Kero water. Start them on Kero warming up and everything else, turn them over on the water and drive all day on water. Don't want you to have that one either. Okay? You know, in the war, when they didn't have petrol, so many ideas come out if you want to chase them up. So many ideas come out. Look at charcoal burner. Okay, we've got ones driving around here all the time, charcoal burners. No fuel. Well, they don't. Got old charcoal, all burned up carbon and everything else, reheat the damn thing, and the only thing you can say is going in the engine. It's not a fuel, it's not a gas, it's not anything else, it's re-burnt or reheated up charcoal. And for some reason it's putting out a frequency that makes your motor run. Already burnt away stuff. All these fellows, scientists and everything, come up with an idea that it reproduced a new gas or something else like that. Fine, well if it did, and you've already exhausted all your burnt stuff and everything, why can't they make you that gas to run the engine? Is it hydrogen? Is it oxygen? Is it methane, alcohol? What is it? I don't know. You go back and check it, but it's just burnt stuff. That also, it doesn't matter. Just look at some of the concepts. So, there's a couple of things happening with the Suzuki. A couple of things. First of all, we are repolarizing and using a different frequency to actually fire the engine down low speed. That's with the key turned off and on, and it's no pre-ignition needed, no cold dieseling needed, and it doesn't do the blip, 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 because the timing's right, and this frequency lines up into that to work it out anyway. Okay? And if you don't think there's anything going through your coil and everything else and so on like that, well, you should rethink it. Okay? Because you're only really needing, any electricians or anything else out there, they say you need an opposite. Well, they tell you need 2 wires or 2 connections. You go and look at Christmas tree lights. They don't have 2. You might plug it in one end here and take it around the other end and plug it in the opposite charge there, but that means that 2 things are running 2 different ways up one wire. Okay, one's positive, one's negative, if it's the case. Or both are negative, or both are positive. Positive plus, positive minus. There's all these different things you can play with and figure out what's out there. You're not told. Okay? Not learned, they don't want you to know as such. people keep finding them and everything else again, and they think they found something wonderful, and maybe Tesla found it, maybe these other guys found it and everything else, and they just shut it all down and don't teach anybody, and then they hide all the info and you have to stumble across it again, or somebody does. But these things are occurring naturally in cars. Naturally. And all I've done is I've played with these things, not very much, played with them, found out about them and used them. So the Suzuki used the reverse polarity to start with, but then it tapped into something else when the revs come up. We dropped out the frequency, the spark, the everything by the cord. No spark for the spark plug leads in your engine. So what was running the engines, you run rather well and smooth and quiet. With no
Except
spark.
it was noisy.
The engine's got tappers.
Yeah, no, and that belt on the alternator was squealing, Joe.
I understand that, I already explained that.
Yeah.
The thing is that the alternator is fighting, so you're not running off the battery and you're not running off the alternator. What you are running off when we get up in the revs is we're transferring over, and the starter motor becomes a generator by being turned faster than it can normally be, and it's outputting, and it doesn't output back up through the wires where a generator outputs, which then has to be regulated. The damn thing goes out through the centre turning shaft, a way that they don't even think of. But see, that's what a coil does. Car coil goes out through the centre of your wirings, not in and out there. It goes out a different direction, 90-degree spike. Same thing happens on the starter motors when you wind them up too far, and they end up with a new energy, a new frequency, a new spark, you can't call the spark because there's no spark. And it's not being cut, it's not being pulsed. It's just a 100% flat line. And if you want to feel it with your hands, you're not going to feel it, because you can't feel DC. The only way you can feel DC is if you flame and pulse it, or turned off and on, she goes bing bing. It's not flat line. Okay? So, and the car runs. And what I done, you work out, any of the other fellas out there, just for the present, you go out and you figure out what I touched and what I done in 3 seconds flat, because I can go back to these fellas' car. He still can't turn it off. You still can't stop the damn thing right now. I was down there
You've been
yesterday.
driving him nuts, haven't you?
Yesterday I was down there again and everything else, and he's still been driven nuts because he's still stuffed on how to do anything.
And he wants to sell that vehicle too, the way it is, isn't it, Joe?
He told me yesterday that he found something else out. He found out another way to shut down the engine that he didn't know how to shut it down before. He said, this is how electronically minded is, and if he gets his tape, it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to run him down or anything else. It's just we all there, and me included, are all under some bullshit stories, and we don't understand every single thing. We're not all smart asses, all right? Some things we haven't learned or know about yet. So I can't say or call him that. He just doesn't understand. Solenoid. Okay, he didn't even know what the name of it was on the carburetor to shut down the fuel when you turn your key off and to that wire. He said, I found another wire, it goes to that thing on the carburetor, you know, that round thing with... I said, yeah, called a solenoid. Yeah, called solenoid. He said, yeah, if I take that off with the key and everything else and so on like that, and so on, and he said, if I arc that out to the body, he said, the engine stops. I said, that's a positive power going to that wire. And I said, the engine is negative. I said, you arc that out, you got a dead short through your whole system. I said, so wonder it didn't blow fuses and everything. He said, well, it did actually at first. And he said, I had to bypass the fuses. That's good. So next time he does it and it sticks that way, his car's going to burn. But he found out to stop the engine. So, anyway. Can we, could we got another question?
Well, that's one question, and we've only got 10 to go, Joe.
No, probably don't. It'll cover a hell of a lot of the questions. So
you reckon?
It's going to get fast now.
Okay, you ready? There's something on the net at the moment called the inventor runs an engine on proton cells.
Never heard of a proton.
Okay. Do you know BJ? Never heard of BJ? The
It
guy
could be
from
JB
Bundaberg.
backwards, no.
Yeah, well, I thought it might have been. John Beams of Jim.
Okay.
BJ, JB, you know, have it with cola.
Lost me.
Sorry, Jim Beam,
No, don't know.
an alcoholic drink. Maybe we should be into it, Joe.
My brain's screwed enough without finding getting into alcohol.
There's a chap from Bundaberg who says he knows you, been doing a lot of work with you.
How many people out there know me? How many people do I remember? I'm lucky to remember what day it is.
Okay, good.
Let alone how many people have come past me, how many people have rang me up, how many people have sent me stuff I've thrown in the bin.
Very quickly, the University of New South Wales, did they run a 1976 Leyland V8 on the bench for months with no radiator?
No. What they had... Who?
The University of New South Wales.
No, they don't know. All I do know is...
They got the rover in Melbourne, isn't it?
There's mixed up information. As far as I know and everything else, the original rover and everything else was taken from a professor who sort of now has passed on too, and so on. We won't run him down too much and so on, but he went and showed this vehicle to the RTA in Newcastle and everything else, and done all these tests and so on like that on it. And then the RTA, apparently one of the guys there fronted out his place and wanted to get into doing it with him and everything else, and then the vehicle sort of went missing. And the Victorian government, as far as we know, ended up with the engine out of the car. And I seen it once, and I've heard about other people seeing it and being there and everything else. She's out of the car with no batteries, no exhaust, no radiators, no nothing else, and they can't shut it down. There's no fuel on board, they can't stop it. It's not even a cell on board, and they can't stop it. They've got cameras and everything else into the cylinders, taking shots of it in cylinder. They still don't know what it's running on. That's the last night I heard about that years ago. Something's flashing on the thing.
Alright, okay, we've got 1 minute or so to go, Joe.
Okay, so no, I don't know.
Joe, have you received numerous death threats?
Not lately, no. No. Come on, I'm not scared, I'm not in fear, I'm not in fear.
Only a me. Big bastard.
Bigger the harder they fall. No, people have said out there that I've been threatened and I'm in, hiding and all that. That's crap. I stopped doing things because I chose to stuff anybody else. Okay? I got threatened to send me kids back in the post. It's written in Nexus years ago and everything else. I chose not to have my kids sent back in the post if I went ahead and showed Beyond 2000 and Nexus and everything else all this technology. So I just said, no, sorry, not coming, because that's what's going to happen to me kids. That's what I was threatened with. And I don't need these threats. I don't want them. I didn't do it for that reason. So stuff everybody. I don't care. Don't matter.
Right out. We'll just
wait for that tape to run out.
No, it won't run out, Joe.
It won't. Good
no.
No.
Joe, thanks very much for answering the one question. As I said, we've only got 10 questions, 9 to go.
You're going to change the tape?
Not change the tape.
I want a copy of this stuff the way it is. And don't cut that bit off either. Because certain people out there are allowed to do things that don't do the right thing. They just don't give me. They don't come back. They don't do the right thing. They don't give me what they steal. They don't give me what they find.
You can't steal it and give it back to you. That's
then it's not stealing.